What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another video. So today I wanted to talk about racism and prejudice, okay? And I wanted to talk about the difference between the two. This is a debate that's been going on for a very long time. There's all kinds of talk about, the exact definition of racism, the exact definition of prejudice, what it means to be prejudiced, what it truly means to be racist. And this debate's been going on forever. So I'm basically going to talk about my perception of it, how I perceive racism, how I perceive what being racist means, and what being prejudiced means. Okay, so when I think of the word racist, okay, I like to, analyze words and break them down and find hidden meanings, okay? And there's a lot of words in the English language that you can do that with, and I've made a lot of videos on different words and stuff like that and hidden meanings. Well, with the word racist, okay, when you actually break that word down, okay, racist, okay, first you have a sun ray, so ray, and then cyst, as in, a cyst, a bad, cyst that you would have, okay, on your body, okay, and so racist. Okay, break that word down, and you can actually symbolize this when you break it down like this. Okay, and with symbolism, there's a lot of different meanings that you can put behind certain things. And with racist, the way that I look at it when you break down the word like this is the ray. Okay, I look at it as the sun rays. Okay, rays from the sun, and when you look at the sun, you think of the sun, you think of life, you think of you think of growth, you think of coming together, unity, which is part of life, connection. Okay, that's what the sun and sun rays are all about. Okay, so if you're a cyst, okay, if you're a ray cyst, then you're a cyst from the sun, as in the sun doesn't like you. Okay, the pro-life, okay, the pro, growth and life sun doesn't like you, and you're basically you're somebody who's causing division. You're somebody who's causing separation rather than causing unity, growth, evolution, all the races to come together. You're somebody who wants to cause separation, drama, stuff like that. Okay, so you're basically a racist. You're a cyst in the sun, as far as the sun is concerned. It's kind of funny, I mean, this little symbolic meaning that I've given this to, but basically, yeah. The way that I look at a racist, someone who's a racist, is there's somebody who doesn't want any connection with a certain race, whatever race that might be, or maybe even more than one race. Okay, they don't want to have anything to do with anybody from that race. They don't want to talk to them, not even one person. They don't want to give anybody a chance from that race that they've never met to see how they are. They just absolutely just, want to avoid that race or those races at all costs. Okay? And someone like that, is not really doing any good for humanity. They're not really, they're not really making people come together with that mindset. And, obviously in like extreme forms of racism, somebody might want to kill somebody just because they're of a certain race. Or somebody might want to, in extreme forms, genocide a certain race. All right? So when you're racist, you basically despise everybody from a certain race, no matter who they are. Okay, so this is like the worst form of things if you're a racist. Now, if you're prejudiced, the way that I look at someone who is prejudiced is there's somebody who they generally have maybe like discrepancies against a certain race, or maybe they might not like a certain race, or they might have some, trust issues or whatever it is with that race, but they're still willing to have certain friends from that race, even though they're slightly prejudiced or they don't like their race for whatever reason. They might have, a few friends still from that race. Now, if they're very prejudiced, okay, almost borderline racist, they might only have, one friend from that race, maybe two, okay, but they're still not the type that would want to genocide a race or not give anybody from that race any time of day, all right? They might be extremely prejudiced and only have one friend, but they're still not racist, I would say, because they still, are willing to engage with people from that race, even though they have problems with that race. Okay, so, basically it depends on the degree of prejudice that you have. Depending on the degree of prejudice, you can be just a little bit prejudiced toward a certain race and maybe have many friends from that race, but you still have problems with that race because of their history, because of whatever it is. Okay, then you could become, more prejudiced, which is maybe you might only have a few friends from that race. And then, like I say, very prejudiced would be like probably only one friend, or maybe even no friends from that race, but you're at least willing to give someone from that race the time of day and talk to them. You're not just going to shut anybody out. Okay, so that's what I look at as prejudice, okay, compared to racist, which racist, like I said, that's the worst form. Okay, that's where you don't want to have anything to do with a certain race and you're not pro-life, you're not pro-connection, coming together with humanity. All right, so with all this being said, little confession to make, and I know that certain people won't want to hear it, but I used to have a degree of prejudice inside me toward black people. Okay, for part of my life, I mean, I was in school growing up. I had some bad experiences with certain types of black people. You could say certain types of black people that were hateful toward white people, and along with it, I was always seeing on the news, you know, like how bad white people were. They would always mention it and how bad our history is. And on top of that, I didn't like being blamed for slavery, something that I didn't personally do. And so all of this stuff combined made me angry, okay? And it made me prejudiced to an extent. All right. Now, I wasn't hardcore prejudice. Like, I wasn't the type that only had like one black friend. I had a few black friends, okay, including some of my best friends, but I did have a problem with the black race, okay, at a certain point in my life. And there was a time when I wouldn't associate with most black people, okay? And basically, as time went on in my life, I started being around more and more black people, and I started being around more good-natured black people. And they really showed me, they really made me look at myself, and I really lightened up in a lot of ways after that. And I realized that, you know, not all black people were the same. I mean, I became prejudiced also because I had a false notion that most black people hated white people and had it out for white people. Okay, and I started being around, some really, like I said, great black people that were really funny, really, you know, fun to talk to, easy to get along with. And like I said, I changed my perception over time, and then basically, I also started to understand their side of things a lot more, especially like when it comes to the cops and the police and all that, and police brutality. And then, obviously, I started to kind of know the truth about the races and the differences between the races and all that. And I really started to see things in perspective, and therefore, it really did make me change, which I'm very, I am thankful for that, and that I don't have, that prejudice inside of me. And, I did know a few skinhead white supremacist types, and let me just say that the ones that I knew were prejudiced. They weren't racist. Okay, the ones that I knew, like, they only had like two, three black friends. Some were very prejudiced, might have only had one black friend, but none of them were racist or hardcore, like wanted to kill all black people. None of them were like that. Okay, and basically, when it comes to this whole thing, with prejudice and all that, anybody who's claiming that they've never had a prejudiced thought in their life, or that they've never used a racial slur in their life, they're probably full of shit and they're probably lying to you. Okay? Now, is my prejudice completely gone? Is it completely, 100%, you know, away and gone forever? Not really. I mean, it's mostly gone, you could say. I mean, I get along fine with all the races just fine. It's just once in a while, if I'm walking in a store and I see somebody who looks a certain way, I find, I find certain thoughts coming up, judgmental thoughts about, is this guy a gangster? Is he a redneck? I stereotype, and I try not to. I find these thoughts coming up. I try to control them, because ultimately it's better not to judge others. And I mean, you could, I guess, argue that this is just a survival instinct that we have. We kind of have to stereotype a little bit to see, to feel somebody out, and, if they're a possible threat or something like that. So you kind of need to stereotype. But it's ultimately better not to judge somebody on first appearance. And let me just say that people who use racial slurs, okay, it doesn't really make them racist necessarily, and it really doesn't even make them necessarily hardcore prejudice either. Okay, I just wanted to point that out. Some people use racial slurs just in their everyday language. Just, it's nothing personal toward any races. They'll even use it in their own race. They'll they'll use racial slurs for whatever race they're talking about, and they just say it casually. Okay, other people, they get emotional and they might say something that they don't mean. Doesn't really make them hardcore prejudice. They're just emotional in the moment. Other people who say racial slurs, they could just be referring to the stereotypes of the certain race that they're referring to, or the negative stereotypes that a lot of people don't really like. Okay, they could just be referring to them. Okay, they're not really referring to all the races, or I'm sorry, they're not really referring to the whole race just by saying a racial slur. So I just wanted to put that out there. Now, that doesn't mean you should use racial slurs. It's ultimately better if you don't use racial slurs, and it's better not to use them, because it's better to just avoid that kind of talk, uh, you know, whenever you can, and really completely. So, anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there about my past, and I just, a little confession, me being prejudiced, and it's pretty common in a lot of people from all the races. And so, anyways, yeah, that's what I wanted to throw out there. That's my perspective on racism and on being prejudiced. I do think that they are two different things. So, anyways, that's what I wanted to throw out there. Ultimately, yeah, I think that obviously, all the races kind of need to learn to be mutual with each other and get along and understand each other's differences. And I'll be going more into the races and breaking down more truths about the races in the videos to come. So stay tuned for that.